Everyone remembers Michael Jackson as the man who danced like gravity did not apply to him. But that is the common myth. The hidden fact is much stranger. Michael Jackson was not simply defying gravity with talent. He was studying how gravity looked to an audience, how a stage could hide a machine, how a shoe could lock into a floor, how a dancer's center of balance could be pushed past the point where the human body should fall, and how a live concert could turn engineering into emotion. The media saw the glove, the hat, the costumes, the strange stories, and the celebrity headlines. But beneath the spotlight was something they rarely explained properly. Michael Jackson was not only performing on a stage. In many moments, he was helping design the stage as if it were a living machine. This is why the anti-gravity lean matters so much. Most people think it was just a trick from Smooth Criminal. Some people think it was a camera effect. Others think it was a dance move that only Michael Jackson could do because he had impossible balance. But the real story sits inside a U.S. patent record. The invention was called method and means for creating anti-gravity illusion. It was not a rumor. It was not fan mythology. It was a real patent connected to Michael Jackson, Michael Bush, and Dennis Tompkins. And that one document reveals something the media often missed. Michael Jackson's genius was not only musical, it was mechanical, visual, architectural, and physical. The first hidden clue is that Michael Jackson did not patent the moonwalk. That is the mistake many people repeat. The moonwalk became his signature, but it was not the invention that went to the patent office. The patented idea was far more specific. It was a system that allowed a performer to lean forward beyond the normal center of gravity by using specially designed shoes that could connect to a hitch or post in the stage floor. That difference matters. A dance move is one thing, a patented stage mechanism is another. It means MJ was not just asking, what move will impress people? He was asking, how can this move survive the real conditions of a live stage, night after night, in front of thousands of people, without the audience seeing the support system? That is the part most casual fans never hear. A music video can cheat, a camera can cut away, a wire can be hidden, a special effects crew can reset between takes. But a live concert is ruthless. The performer must move fast. The dancers must hit the mark. The lighting must land at the right second. The floor cannot have obvious metal sticking out of it before the move happens. The audience must see magic, but the performer must feel safety. That is where the engineering begins. And the second hidden clue is that the anti-gravity shoe was not really just a shoe. The shoe was only half of the invention. The other half was the stage. The patent describes a heel slot in the shoe, but it also describes a hitch member or post that could rise through the stage surface. In simple language, the heel of the shoe had a place where it could catch onto a small raised part of the stage. Once the shoe locked in, the dancer could lean forward much farther than normal because the stage was anchoring the feet. Then, after the lean, the dancer could slide backward, release the shoe, and continue dancing. Now think about how difficult that really is. The stage peg has to be strong enough to hold the force of a grown performer leaning forward. It has to appear at the correct moment. It cannot be too tall, or the shoe will not slide naturally. It cannot be too weak, or the dancer can fall. It cannot stay raised during the rest of the routine, because dancers moving at full speed could trip over it. So the stage system has to become almost invisible. It has to appear like a tool, work like a lock, and disappear like a secret. That is not just choreography. That is stage engineering. The third hidden clue is the difference between a recorded illusion and a live illusion. In a controlled video environment, the anti-gravity effect can be supported by hidden methods that are not practical in live performance. The patent itself talks about earlier cable methods and explains the problem. Cables could support the effect, but they required stagehands to connect and disconnect them, and they restricted arm and body movement. That is a massive problem for Michael Jackson because his performance language depended on freedom. His arms could not look trapped. His body could not look assisted. His dancers could not pause for a visible technical setup. The entire point was to make the impossible appear casual. This is where Michael Jackson's mind becomes more interesting. Many performers would accept the limitation. They would say, that trick worked in the video, but we cannot do it live. MJ seems to have asked the opposite question. What would need to exist for this to work live? That is an engineer's question. It starts with a problem, not with applause. It asks what must be changed in the costume, the footwear, the floor, the timing, and the movement so that the illusion can leave the studio and enter the arena. The fourth hidden clue is hidden in the body itself. The anti-gravity lean was not impressive only because it looked cool. It was impressive because it pushed against human biomechanics. A normal human body has a center of gravity. When you lean forward from the ankles with your body straight, that center of gravity moves forward. At a certain point, your calf muscles and ankles cannot hold you anymore. You fall. Even trained dancers have limits. The famous MJ lean reached around 45 degrees while the body stayed almost straight like a rod. That is why doctors and spine specialists later discussed the move. It was not simply a pop culture moment. It became a question about anatomy, balance, force, and illusion. The technical secret is that the body was not magically stronger than gravity. The shoe and stage changed the rules. When the heel locked into the stage, the feet could act like an anchor. But the anchor did not do all the work. The performer still needed extraordinary core strength, leg control, timing, and confidence. If the body collapsed at the hips, the illusion would fail. If the performer bent the knees too much, the line would look wrong. If the lean happened too slowly or too early, the audience would feel the setup. The engineering created the possibility, but the dancer still had to make it beautiful. That is one reason the media often misunderstood MJ's eccentricity. They saw the details and thought they were strange. The single glove, the short pants, the military jackets, the tape on the fingers, the hats, the shoes, the socks, the sharp silhouettes. But on stage, many of these details had a visual function. A white sock against dark pants makes footwork readable from the back of an arena. A fedora gives the head a graphic shape. A glove turns the hand into a light-catching object. Military jackets sharpen the shoulders and make the upper body visible under stage lights. What people called fashion was often stage readability. MJ was designing for the camera, the front row, the balcony, and the television screen at the same time. The fifth hidden clue is his obsession with precision. Michael Jackson did not treat a concert like a singer walking on stage to perform songs. He treated it like a complete system. Music, lighting, costume, movement, video, stage entrances, stage exits, smoke, silence, pauses, and crowd reaction all had to work together. This is why rehearsal footage from This Is It is so valuable. It shows a performer thinking in layers. He was not only singing, he was listening to the timing of the band. He was watching the lighting cue. He was noticing where the sound hit. He was correcting small moments that many people in the audience would never consciously notice, but would absolutely feel. That is an important sentence. The audience may not notice the detail, but they feel the detail. Michael Jackson understood that. A light hitting 1 second too late can make an entrance feel weaker. A drum accent landing without the right movement can lose impact. A video screen that changes too early can pull the eye away from the dancer. A costume that does not catch light can disappear from the upper seats. These are engineering problems disguised as entertainment problems. The sixth hidden clue is that MJ's stage was often built around controlled surprise. Think about the way he entered performances. Sometimes he would stand completely still while the crowd screamed. That stillness was not empty. It was a pressure chamber. The stage became a machine that built emotional voltage. The lights, the posture, the silence, the crowd noise, and the delay all worked together. A normal performer might rush to begin. Michael Jackson often waited. He understood that time itself could be staged. That kind of control is easy to dismiss as ego if you only watch celebrity headlines. But from a performance design perspective, it is extremely calculated. Standing still under stadium lights is not doing nothing. It is using the audience's nervous system. It is letting anticipation become part of the show. It is the same principle behind the anti-gravity lean. The power is not only in the movement. The power is in the setup. The audience knows what a body should do. Then the body does something else. For 1 second, the brain searches for an explanation. That gap between expectation and explanation is where wonder lives. The seventh hidden clue is that Michael Jackson's engineering was not always about machines. Sometimes it was about human attention. He understood what the eye follows. He knew that contrast matters. Black pants and white socks. A dark stage and one bright glove. A hard beat and a sudden freeze. A fast spin followed by stillness. The stage was not just a place to stand, it was a visual laboratory. This is why the media missed so much. The media often focused on Michael Jackson as a personality, a spectacle, a scandal, or a mystery. Those stories were easier to sell, but the deeper story required patience. It required looking at a patent drawing, a rehearsal correction, a stage floor, a shoe heel, a lighting cue, and a costume seam. It required admitting that some of the things called weird were actually part of a performance system. Look again at the anti-gravity illusion from this perspective. The audience sees a man lean forward in a white suit and fedora. The eye says impossible, but underneath that moment is a chain of hidden decisions. The shoes need a heel slot. The stage needs a movable post. The post needs strength. The spacing needs accuracy. The dancer needs to find the mark without looking down. The lighting needs to hide the mechanism but reveal the body line. The music needs to create the dramatic moment. The other dancers need to match the lean so the illusion becomes collective, not accidental. And the exit must be smooth enough that nobody thinks about the machinery after it happens. That is the genius. Great stage engineering is not supposed to announce itself. If the audience notices the device, the trick fails. If the audience forgets the device, the illusion becomes legend. Michael Jackson understood that better than almost anyone in popular music. There is another reason this story matters. It changes how we understand his creativity. We often separate artists and engineers as if they belong to different worlds. The artist feels, the engineer calculates, the artist imagines. The engineer builds. But Michael Jackson's career shows how false that separation can be. His imagination constantly demanded technical solutions. If he imagined a body leaning past gravity, someone had to solve the footwear, the floor, and the safety. If he imagined a concert as a cinematic event, someone had to solve the screens, cues, lights, sound, and timing. If he imagined a costume that became part of the character, someone had to solve movement, fabric, reflection, and durability. The public saw the final image. MJ saw the invisible structure behind it. And this is why the patent is more than a strange trivia fact. It is a doorway into his working mind. It proves that at least one of his most iconic illusions was not just a dance secret. It was protected as an invention. It was documented. It had drawings. It had claims. It had named inventors. It had a filing date. It belonged not only to pop history, but to the history of performance technology. What makes the story even more powerful is that the invention solved a very specific artistic problem. Michael Jackson was not trying to invent a normal shoe. He was not trying to create a consumer product for everyday walking. He was solving a moment, one visual moment, one impossible-looking lean, 1 second of shock. But to create that second, the whole system had to exist. That is a lesson many people miss about genius. Sometimes genius is not a giant machine. Sometimes it is a tiny hidden mechanism that makes one unforgettable moment possible. The audience does not need to know the mechanism. In fact, the audience usually enjoys the moment more when they do not know. But behind the curtain, the mechanism is the difference between fantasy and reality. The media love to describe Michael Jackson as eccentric because eccentricity is easy to understand. A strange outfit, a strange home, a strange habit, a strange headline. But engineering is harder to explain. It requires diagrams, it requires physics, it requires respect for invisible work. It asks the viewer to look beneath the surface. And if we do that, a different Michael Jackson appears. Not just the king of pop, but the designer of impossible moments. Not just a dancer, but a performer who understood leverage, balance, timing, light, and illusion. Not just a celebrity, but a builder of experiences. So the next time you see the smooth criminal lean, do not only ask, how did he do that? Ask the better question. What kind of mind refuses to leave that moment trapped inside a music video? Because that is where the real story begins. The video showed the dream. The patent tried to make the dream tourable. The stage turned the dream into a repeatable illusion. And Michael Jackson stood at the center of all of it, turning physics into theater. The hidden clue was never just in the shoe, it was in the way he thought. He looked at gravity and saw choreography. He looked at a stage floor and saw a machine. He looked at costume and saw visibility. He looked at silence and saw tension. He looked at technology and saw emotion. That is why the media missed his engineering. They were staring at the spectacle, while the real genius was hiding in the structure that made the spectacle possible. Michael Jackson did not simply perform magic. He helped design the conditions that made people believe in it.